Hello, and welcome back to Diecast Graveyard. My name is Paul. Today we've got a pretty special build. We're going to be restoring a Hot Wheels Boss Hoss. Now this is part of the Spoilers edition, and as you can tell, this car is in really rough shape. There's a lot of blemishes on this car. There's actually a bearing broken off in the back, and there's a lot of scratches, and there's just a lot of dings and nicks in the body of the car. So we're going to go ahead and take it apart and check out what we have. We're going to do an autopsy and figure out what we need to replace and how we need to approach it. So let's go ahead and get started with today's build. I've already got the front post drilled out and the back post too. I forgot there's two on this car. This car is in pretty rough shape. Here's the body. Got a lot of cleaning up to do, and there's a lot of blemishes on this car like I was saying. Looks like somebody attempted to paint it blue at one time. Here's the base. That's pretty rough too, and we got a bearing we have to replace. That's going to be pretty interesting. A lot of blue paint on this too. Here's the windshield. I'm pretty sure we can polish that out. That looks like it can be saved. And here's the interior. That's probably the best piece on the car. Here's the engine. Got a lot of stray paint on that. We're going to have to clean that up and maybe use a wire brush and get in there to get some of that paint out of there. Grab your favorite beverage. First thing we need to do is get the old paint off this body. Go ahead and dip it in the embalming fluid. Knock off the excess. You don't need to have that extra paint stripper on there. Oop. Make sure you got a good hold on the thing too. Let's set it on the little tray here and wait for the paint to bubble off so we can continue.
Meanwhile, back in the graveyard.
We've got the body all cleaned up. Now let's hit it with the Flitz. Flitz is a fantastic product. Now inside the comments there is a code and a link to go to the Flitz website that says Uncle Paulie. When you go to the Flitz website, the Flitz people are offering 20% off of any product on Flitz as long as you go to the link in the comments section of this video. And when you go to checkout, use the code word graveyard. That'll give you 20% off of anything on the Flitz website. So please check it out. This is a fantastic product, and not only can you use it for the metal, you can also use it for your plastic and your glass to polish it up. So thereby you're saving money, not only with the 20%, but by only having to stock one product in your arsenal. So grab a tube of Flitz today, you won't be sorry. When you're using the Dremel, make sure that you don't have your Dremel at full speed. If you have your cream on there and you're trying to polish up something, if it's going too fast, all you're going to do is burn the product and possibly stain the metal. So back down the speed and take your time. Now if it doesn't get shiny enough for you, just put a little bit more Flitz on there and polish it out, and it'll work fantastic, I promise you. This is looking good. Let's go ahead and move on. We cleaned it up with the Zep degreaser, and now we're going to go ahead and give it a coat of paint. Here we're going to use Spectre Flame Magenta from the Redline shop. I love all the Spectre Flame paints, and I like to mix up the colors every so often. Get the hard to reach areas first, get up in the fender wells and the underside of the car, and do light mist coats. This is the secret to a fantastic paint job, is by doing these mist coats. Take your time, go over the entire car, and then let it set approximately 15 minutes. That way there the paint will start to set up, and it'll give it a good base for the rest of the coats of paint that you're going to put on a little bit later here. But the key to this, like I said, folks, is light mist coats, or what's called a tack coat. And that'll give you the fantastic paint job. Now, the other thing is when you're painting these cars and you see that you may have some blemishes, if you use the darker colors like the blue and the purple, and in this case the magenta, it's going to hide some of those blemishes if you can't get them off through polishing and sanding. And you don't want to sand too much, because that takes away the detail of the car that's already on there, such as the door lines and any scoops or anything like that, the door handles. So if you've got blemishes on there still, then just go ahead and use a darker paint, and that will help cover them up so you don't have to get into the heavy-duty sanding. That's starting to look pretty good. We'll let that set for a bit, and then we'll hit it with some saturation coats. That turned out great.
Someone is being exhumed.
Okay, now we've got the base. We still have to clean it up, but we're going to go ahead and address that bearing that's missing off the bottom. Here I got a bearing, a replacement bearing, and I got this from Bearcat 3D Designs. Now on the back of the bearing are the two support post tabs that were left on there when you remove them from the plastic. Just go ahead and take a file and lightly sand those down to make it nice and smooth. That way there, when it rolls, it won't catch on the car. Zoom out here just a little bit. Let's make sure that there's enough metal on the end of the axle to be able to have you repair this without inhibiting the rolling of the wheel. Okay, there's going to be plenty of room. So now we're going to use the fence pliers, and we're going to pinch just the very end of that axle in order to keep the bearing from coming off. Get it on there and squeeze it as hard as you can, and that'll give it a nice flat edge so the bearing won't pop off. Zoom in. There you go. And that's pretty much all you need. Now go ahead and slide that bearing back out there. You may have to clean it up with a file, but there's plenty of room there for that bearing to travel, and now your repair is complete. And there's today's tip from your Uncle Paulie. Let's go ahead and get the rest of these wheels off. Using both your thumbs, use equal pressure to remove the tire. If it gives you any resistance or it feels really sloppy, then just go ahead and cut the wheels off. Save them if you can, but if you can't, then cut them off. Now it's time to polish up the base. Here we go back for some more flits. Only use a little bit. If you use too much, all you're doing is wasting the product. Now a tube this large should last you months. So this tube here I've had for about 4 months now, and it's not even halfway gone, so it'll last you a long time. Use a nice cloth wheel to buff out the flits on the metal, and you'll get a fantastic shine. Now of course, if you get in there with some steel wool and maybe some light sandpaper, you might even be able to polish it to a mirror finish, but that's completely up to you. In this particular case, it's not necessary. Work your way in with the flits at some different angles, and it'll get all the cracks and crevices that you have there and clean up that oxidation. Now later on, if you want to go back in with the Renaissance wax and polish it down, it'll also help to keep the base from tarnishing later on, and it puts a protective coating on there. This is looking fantastic. Let's go ahead and move on to the next step. Here we've got the engine. I went through and I used a wire wheel and tried to get off as much paint as possible. Now I'll put a little flits on there, and we'll get in there with the polishing bonnet and clean it up. Look how that polish is working already to make this engine stand out. What a shine in that bad boy already. This is going to be a real sharp looking car when it's done. That Spectre Flame Magenta is incredible. Man, that looks nice. And like I say to you folks can do this too. If you watch the videos that we put out here, and the reason we do these videos is for you. I mean, I could sit here at home and polish these cars all up and do it for my own satisfaction, but it's more fun when you do this with friends. Look how nice that turned out with just a little bit of effort. Now, like I say, I show you the different products that I have and where I get them so you can get them too and enhance your own diecast hobby. Now here we're going to go ahead and put on some replacement wheels from the Redline shop, and we're going to be using the replacement deep dish wheels. These wheels are fantastic. Now in the back, notice how the bearing was just a little bit loose. So what we're going to do is we're going to put just a little tiny little drop of super glue on there to hold that wheel in place. Now you don't want to gob it on there because you may want to get it off a little bit later on. So just a tiny little dab on there and set that wheel on there and then let it set and dry for a few minutes, and then you won't have any problems with it. It rolls nice and free and it's not going to come off anymore. Now if you were to put any pressure on there, you could definitely take it off. So this is more than sufficient. Once they're all dry and they're all ready to go, you may want to adjust the axles there with your axle tool in order to get the car to roll straight. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click on that little bell to be alerted to any future videos that come out. Now we've got a little bit of flitz on the plastic windshield. Here you want to slow the Dremel down. You don't want it to go too fast because first off, the plastic will melt. If you get it going too fast and too hot, it will melt and it will ruin your windshield. So you really want to slow this down quite a bit. Just keep a constant eye on there until you get the desired results. Now look how fast that already is polishing up. That looks great. And you didn't have to find another windshield, which sometimes these are really hard to find. So if you can use what you already have, you've already come out on top. Now let's go ahead and do the back of the window. Now this thing is coated with black paint underneath. Now if you really want to, you could hit that again, but I'm just going to leave it alone. I think it looks fine the way it is. All you're trying to do here is get it to shine up. That's looking really good. Now get yourself a cloth and wipe off the excess. And you've turned this old ratty windshield into something that looks brand new. Well, close to it anyway. That looks great. Let's go ahead and move on. Here we've got all of our pieces. Here's the body done up in the Spectre Flame Magenta from the Redline shop. That turned out beautiful. Here's the base, all polished up and cleaned. And we're going to detail the grille and the tail lights. Interior looks fantastic. And here's the windshield all polished up with the flitz. The engine, same thing. That looks beautiful. Let's put it all together and have our reveal. And here's what we started with. We had a bearing missing on the back end. Look how rough the paint is on this car. I mean, it's old, worn out, and tired. So we took the car apart. We did the autopsy and evaluated everything we had. We polished up what we could. We re-detailed the car. We put on that beautiful Spectre Flame paint from the Redline shop. We put brand new wheels from the Redline shop, those deep dish cap style wheels. They look fantastic. And excuse me, not cap style, bearing style wheels. And they look great. But we put it all together, and this car here, I can't believe how well it turned out. And look how beautiful that turned out. That Spectre Flame Magenta is fantastic. Now, I could have filed down the roof edge or along the windshield a little bit more to get rid of that little divot, but I was afraid I was going to have to take away too much material in order to get that to look smooth, so I left it the way it was. We got those beautiful Redline tires from the Redline shop, and we polished everything up. Now, this car was in extremely rough shape, but we did bring it back from the dead, and it looks fantastic. I may even go back in a little later and put some flat black on the back spoiler just to kind of take away that big old chrome face on the back. But the car looks fantastic. What a great time I had with this build. Thank you for joining me today on Diecast Graveyard. We've got a lot more videos coming up in the future, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And thank you again for joining me here today. If there's something you'd like to see, put it in the comments. Thank you, and cheers.